welcome to Dungeoneering Done Dirt Cheap. I'm Everweird, and I'm playing the Gunderholfen Mega Dungeon using the BECME D&D rules from the 1980s and 90s. A lot happened in the last session, and I've got a ton of bookkeeping that I did and I'm going to have to do in this episode. My party was on level 2. Had done a pretty good job getting everywhere they could. Let's compare it to the map in the book. So the way I do this is I'm looking at this map on an iPad that's off screen, and then I'm mapping it here. It kind of helps me from looking ahead. I've played a session at least or two where I just had the book map in front of me, and if I wasn't actively mapping, I wasn't as engaged or curious about what was going on. So at least we think we've mapped pretty far. It turns out that if we went through this little stairway here, that would lead us to all these rooms back here. We haven't done that yet. In the last session, we got to this. Oh, interesting. I'm finding out that after I said that about mapping, that I mapped incorrectly. And so my map does not follow the Gunderholfen map anymore, which is interesting. I've got no choice but to leave it as I mapped it, and how these rooms connect incorrectly according to Gunderholfen. I think perhaps the thin cavern walls have collapsed and we've found passages that didn't previously exist when all of this was mapped in the book. Nonetheless, we ended up in a very dangerous room. We were ambushed by these Vilstroks in here. They took the life of Faqual, our magic user. We had to bug out at that point. We ran out of level 2, up to level 1, where our clay golem Frank was waiting at the top of the stairs with a treasure chest that we had found. I got back to Longfelt. We traveled from Gunderholfen across the Ganfell Swamp, arrived in Longfelt as day was breaking the next day, carrying our companion just, so distraught, visited the Temple of Cathaleia that we've been before to leave the body of Faqual to lie in state there. This is sort of what we've done with other fallen companions. We have a relationship with the Temple of Cathaleia. And then I went into the bookkeeping phase. I started looking through that chest that we had found that Frank was carrying. They will return to the adventurer's shop and smithy and speak with the brothers there. And it is Harford that is their main contact. They'll make the same deal with Harford, 10% of what's in the chest for him helping open it. He stands back with a very long crowbar, pries this open, and when they open that chest, they find 2 opals, which they will eventually discover are worth 1,000 gold each, 3 chrysoberyl stones worth 500 each, 500 gold, and a gem-studded silver bracelet worth about 6,000 gold. So I'm going to have to work all that out as far as like what they take in for experience and then what they pay out in gold to Harford. They give Harford 950 gold. That's going to leave them with 8550, but it's going to give them 9,500 XP. Wow, they took home a ton of experience due to a couple things. One was that chest and all of the value of those items within it, but also they had captured the spell book from Devrin, the wizard in there, and the spell book itself had an XP value attached to it and a gold value, so they're hanging on to it. That is the leverage they will use with Balffor to kind of ask his forgiveness for losing Faqual. Of course, they're thinking like human beings with bits of compassion in their bodies, and Balffor has none. So Balffor is going to be overjoyed to get this spellbook and will have to force himself to remember to act pained by the loss of Faqual. I think there's a further thing that the party will do as they're here, which is they're going to come up with some sort of strategy for uncoupling themselves from Balffor. We are no longer interested in this deal that we've struck. Where possible, we will give you maps, but like we don't want to be reporting into you. So I think they're going to think about that for a little bit. Everyone is pretty much going to jump up in level and probably do that thing where I get stuck, 1 HP behind the next level, because they're each going to gain 2,500 XP. Virago leveled up. A couple of very cool things about their level up. As a mystic, which is this optional class within BECME, Virago has basically monk skills. And so far, I enjoy the way that this levels up. At every level, a mystic gains some improvements. Their hand weapon, when they strike with their hands, The damage increased to a D4 plus 1 from a D4. Their movement increased to 130 feet. Their AC went down to an 8. Still not great, but it goes down every single level. They still have 1 hand attack, but that will increase as they go up. And at second level, they gain awareness, meaning they can only be surprised on a 1 in 6 roll, not a 1 or 2. In addition, the thief skills that they have, the thief abilities, increased. And I'm realizing in this moment, I misread something about the Mystic. The Mystic does not have all of the thief abilities, only find traps, remove traps, move silently, hide in shadows, and climb walls. So they don't have open locks. They don't have hear noises. That's great. And they don't have pickpockets. Okay, this makes so much more sense. I misread that. It was like a late addition to the Mystic when I was changing Virago's stats, restatting them as a Mystic. So that makes sense. So a couple things to point out. One is that when Blaine leveled up to level 3, I never rolled new hit points for Blaine for that level. So here come those new hit points. 2 more hit points. So Blaine's max hit points is now an 11. He has no con bonus. Additionally, I discovered at some point in one of those sessions that I had equipped Blaine with a spear, and Blaine as a cleric cannot use any pointed or edged weapons, so Blaine no longer has that spear. And finally, the big one is Talira. I realized in the midst of a battle, I was rolling something up. Oh, I did 2 damage. And I went, oh wait, her damage is affected by her strength score, and that's a -2. Does that mean I have to roll at least 3 damage for Talira to do any damage? Yes. One thing I really appreciate about basic D&D are there not these sort of get out of jail free moves where you always do a minimum of damage or something. You know, they're in modern editions of games, they're always kind of nerfing you upwards, improving your abilities so that you're not penalized by your stats as much. But I don't like that. I like just a real plain rule that says your strength modifier affects your damage, and if your modifier is negative, then your damage is negative. I understand that Talira is so weak that she can't do damage when it's required by strength. I don't know what I should have done in retrospect with this character. I am, to be honest, a little flabbergasted that no one called this out in the comments. I get that the pencil is kind of hard to read on video, but I've gotten such good guidance in the past on characters. Someone spotted recently that in a video where Virago was still statted as a fighter, I had written down the wrong fighter saves for them. That reminds me to go check on the fighter saves for the fighting party. And lo and behold, they are incorrect. They're level 3 now. I'd written down the normal man fighting saves, which is, frankly, I don't know why they include that in this, but they do. We have been picking up throughout this solo saga how older D&D sort of leaves you wanting sort of with its user experience. So does modern D&D, in fact. Okay, I've got better saves for the Dungeoneering Company. Hey there, just a brief interruption from future me as I'm watching past me in this video and I'm trying to edit it and make sense of what I said. I went on this long digression about Talira having that -2 to strength, and did I build the character wrong? No, I didn't. I knew all of this when I built the character, that because of the stats I rolled, these were the best stats for my thief in the party. I knew at the time that Talira just couldn't be a melee fighter and also can't benefit from throwing weapons because in Basic Expert, or at least in BECME D&D, your dexterity modifier affects your 2 hit when you throw a weapon like a dagger, but your strength modifies the damage done with a thrown weapon like a dagger. So if I throw that dagger, I have to apply a -2 to the damage. I'm gonna have to roll pretty high. Yeah, I mean, I've got like only a 50% chance of doing any damage at all. It changes a little bit with the dagger +1, but nothing really changed the build other than as I played Talira and she found a scimitar and she found a +1 dagger, I was flavoring it like she wanted to get into the action and become more of a melee fighter, but that's just impractical for her. She needs to stay out of close combat and shoot things with a bow and arrow. So this thief needs to go sort of the assassin route, and that's what I'm gonna do. We also are left with a whole lot of money. It's going to take, of course, a couple of days to cash all those gems into gold. I don't think I factored in this potion of rat control. Yeah, it takes us a bit of time to kind of cash all this in, meet with Clement, and start thinking about a more permanent situation for ourselves. We've got about 19,000 gold altogether. It's kind of a why rent when you can own situation where they're constantly paying at the silver flogger, and everyone there can kind of see that things are happening, and it's sort of strange that there's not progress happening. Like, why are these people still staying here? Do they have gold hidden in their room? What's going on? Are they hoarding it from us? The people are beginning to talk in the Silver Flogger Inn. It's definitely time for us to fortify and move out. On that first day back in town, as they have visited the Temple of Cathleia, they're probably not interested in trying to sell all their wares right away. They definitely go get that chest opened. They have given their cut to the brothers at the Adventurer's Shop at Smithy for helping them open it, and they've gathered for lunch together to talk over what to do. This death of Faqual is a huge hit to the party. They are facing it with this dose of reality, primarily around, there's just so much. There's so many factors involved in this. But one of the things that's certainly on their mind is, how do we tell Balffor? How do we approach this? Talira suggests we just have to take our medicine. We just have to visit Balffor and tell him straightforwardly what has happened in the dungeon on this last time through. They all nod. No one's eager to do this. And they're going to take the afternoon. They have some food, they have a few more drinks, and they haven't really gotten any rest. So I think that afternoon is when they rest, and they agree that they will see Balffor this evening. Balffor was always a creature of the night anyway, so he certainly won't mind, and that's what they do. When they wake from their unrestful rest, their fitful sleep, or they're just staring into the walls in their rooms in the inn. Not that it matters too much, but they are staying over on the west end of town, and they have to travel sort of to this northern center area to Balffor's tower. They go over there. They ask to see Balffor. They give the special knock, and Balffor comes down to let them in, and quickly understands that Faqual is not with them. There's sort of an imperceptible change to his face. He's not upset. What he's doing really is holding his reaction in, and because he wants to hear what they may tell him about Faqual's fate. Talira and Virago are clearly in the leadership positions. Balffor does recognize that Virago is back with the group, sees that they are dressed somewhat differently in the traditional robes of a mystic of their people, but again, betrays no reaction, just sees it. Everyone sees him nod at Virago and sort of take them in, but does not give any hint as to what he's thinking about this. Talira kind of looks over the party and says, Balffor, you can see that we're short a member of our company. Faqual didn't make it out of the dungeon, was killed by these horrible insect-looking monsters made of rock. The rest of us, a couple of us, were also knocked unconscious through the heroic acts of Blaine. We were able to heal up and recover. Unfortunately, we couldn't do anything about Faqual. So Faqual, we have laid to rest at the Temple of Cathleia. And that's the first moment that Balffor betrays some emotion. Balffor, his forehead kind of crinkles and his eyebrows slant down as he is clearly annoyed that they took the body to the Temple of Cathleia and not to him. Again, doesn't say anything, just takes in this scene from them. Talira asks, may we talk to you about this more inside? We want to explain ourselves and also offer you some of the information and goods that we were able to take out of this dungeon. So Balffor ushers them in, takes them to a sitting room, and there's a pot of tea already warm there. It seems like it is perpetually warmed by a stone that it is sitting on. They tell him the story, again, of like in more detail about how they came across these rock monsters and how the fight went down and how Faqual fell and what happened. They describe the monsters as well as those Gorbles that they had to escape from. Faqual is keenly interested in all the monsters they've seen. And they tell him about the magic user that they encountered, Devrin, and they tell him all about the cult. So Blaine is at that point able to produce the books that Faqual took about the cult of Afra. They also tell Balffor we were able to recover this magic user's spell book. as well as some components for spells. So they hand over Faqual's sack that has the spell book and the components that he took. Balffor goes through it and recognizes these are the components for Charm Person. That was something that Faqual was interested in learning whenever he attained the skills to do so. He also looks through the spell book, and he can read that the spell book has shield, sleep, detect magic, magic aura, invisibility, magic mouth, audible, glamour in it. It is a very good find, and it garnered them a lot of XP, in fact, to find this. Balffor kind of nods his appreciation, and he's trying to think of what an empathic human would say in this instant, and he comes up with a pretty good response, which is he affects a look of concern and sympathy and says, "I really appreciate you coming to me with this news, and of course I am sorry for your loss, and I appreciate very much to know this information about Gunderholfen and what lies within it. It is notable that someone was there trying to restart this cult of Afra and wanted to use you as sacrificial victims to this cult. I'm glad that, Blaine, you were able to think quickly and take actions that saved your party. And I'm also grateful that Faqual had the foresight to just cut this magic user's throat and not let them breathe this evil into the world. This is all a lie because Balffor would be fine with that evil getting out into the world." Balffor wants to know more details about that layer, the layer of Devrin, what they saw in it, what this sacrificial altar looked like. So they spend the afternoon or this evening, I guess, talking about that, and it's really affecting Talira. It's affecting all of them. They don't like talking in an analytical way about the circumstances that led to their companion's death. They also have given him the map that they've made, and he says, "I really appreciate you collecting this information for me. This is very useful as we want to strengthen Longfeld's defenses against whatever evil may be in Gunderholfen." This is also a lie because he doesn't care about that. But he says, in appreciation for this, I'm going to give you 2 health potions. That's all I have with me right now. He goes to another room and fetches these purple potions. So they will gain 2 more health potions before they have to start paying that hefty 400 gold price for them. They tell him that they're going to stay in town for a few days, and they're going to try to recruit before they head back out there. He sort of nods, greedily wants them to return as soon as possible, but understands they're no good to him if they go back there and die. So he doesn't say anything about this, and of course tells them to share any information. I hope you'll return with any further information you remember about these encounters. He also senses something has changed in Talira. Something has shifted, and that is her alignment that's shifted from chaotic to neutral, because she has genuinely begun to care for the companions of her party and does not have the selfish bias that she once had. And Balffor is feeling his influence kind of slip over her. And this worries him a bit, but they've said all the right things, and they've come to him with these gifts, and he is eager to dig into this spell book and some of these books on the cult of Afra so that he can understand who his competitors are or who his potential allies are. They leave Balfour's tower, return to the Silver Flogger, and they talk again to Talbert, the innkeeper in the Silver Flogger. They say, we love this establishment. We love coming here and feeling like this is our home, but we think we need something a little bit more permanent and bigger as our company grows. Talbert at that mention kind of looks over the company because it looks to him like the company has shrunk. Virago used to be the one to approach dealings like this, but in their path of the mystic, because I restatted them, what I think has happened is they have lost some of that charisma because they've become very serious about this path that they're on. So where they once had a bonus to the charisma, they now do not. So I think it's Blaine that does most of the talking here. He is a charmer. So Talbert tells them their best chance is to find a woman in town named Elgiva. She often brokers deals where she is selling some of the keeps and houses and things that are outside the city. Talbert tells them that any kind of property they want to buy within the city is going to be quite expensive, but it does offer them the protection. And of course, Talbert says, we don't want to lose your business. We can offer you this room and board as long as you like. Blaine is extremely appreciative and able to charm Talbert, but says this may not be a long-term thing, but right now we feel like we do need a place of our own. They pass the rest of their morning. They get some good leads on where to find Elgiva and eventually run across her somewhere. I think Blaine and Grebe are going to take the lead here. So Talira, Virago, they are off selling those jewels and doing that bookkeeping part of the return with the treasure, and also visiting Clement and making sure that their gold is secure, and saying they may withdraw it soon because they may be buying a place of their own. They find Elgiva. Elgiva is extremely friendly. I'm going to roll some random character traits for her. Maternal, sweet, and a little paranoid. That kind of fits. So they find this older woman, and her spin on brokering these transactions is that she does take this very maternal, she has these maternal instincts that kind of take over, and is able to make Blaine and Grebe feel like she really wants to take care of them. They discuss budget. They say, we've never really done anything like this before. We don't know where to go. And Elgiva asks what they do. You know, she can see from the way they're dressed, the way they carry armaments with them, that they must do something a bit dangerous. And they tell Elgiva exactly what they do. They raid dungeons, and they are currently trying to clear out this very dangerous place. It's dangerous work, so they need something of their own that's kind of fortified, you know, anything that rings a bell like that, like an older tower or fortified structure in some way. We don't just want a house, especially if it's got to be out of the city. And Elgiva nods, and this is where they see the kind of the paranoid look come into her eyes, and this fear sort of appears there. And she says, well, there is this one tower. We were trying to sell it for a normal listing, which would be almost 10,000 gold pieces. But lately what's happened is that it appears someone or something, some kind of evil has overtaken this tower. She describes it in very happy, sunny realtor terms of it has 4 floors. It has a floor that has plenty of space for more than one bedroom. Currently, it's just one bedroom. It has a sitting room that could also easily be sectioned off into other rooms. And it has a very large kitchen as well as a larder downstairs where all of your food and sundries will keep safely through the summer and winter. She describes the windows, the entryways. The roof was recently redone by the former owner. Then she comes back to this like fear and this paranoia. There is something in it. If you all, as brave adventurers, would be willing to clear out whatever this danger is within it, I'm sure that I could get you half price, because it's unsellable at this moment. We would be willing to sell it to you for, say, 4,000 gold if you could go in and make sure that it's safe. They push her. Blaine especially pushes with that charisma. What if we get into it and whatever evil there has destroyed its livability? She says, I would be willing to negotiate with the owner for some kind of payment to you for clearing it up, maybe a cut on it, the future sale of this. But I know right now I can't get anyone to look at it because there's just a sense around it that something's wrong. So they return that evening to their companions and tell them what they've found. They've told Elgiva they will report back to her tomorrow. And there's just a general sense of, yeah, sure, why not? Let's check it out. They notice when they return, though, that Virago and Talira are sitting with an elf. And I don't think they've seen elves in the city, but they're not very prevalent. And they have not ventured with an elf before. So when they take this seat with Talira and Virago, they're introduced to Lorkay, who is dressed in plate armor, has a shield next to them at the table, and carries a pretty fine sword. Lorkay is very unassuming for an elf, despite this armor. He speaks quietly, has kind of a hesitation to his speech. What Blaine and Grebe, Zenith and Balad learn as they've all come back together and found Talira and Virago with Lorkay is that they arrived in the tavern a little bit early and saw this heavily armored elf and just casually asked why they would be so armored, if there was something going on that they should know about. And Lorkay said, no, I've left my people. This is, of course, after a lot of convincing and trusting, a lot of small talk that has gained trust among them. But Lorkay has eventually told Talira and Virago that he has left his people. There were some disagreements about his choices, his lifestyle, the way he wanted to live his life. But he had gone through some training to become something of the elf version of a fighter and something like a warrior in that regard. So when he left, he took the armor, the sword, the shield that he had been given in this training and thought, these are mine. This is I paid for this with my blood and sweat, and this will serve me well on the next step in my life. But he arrived in Longfelt, only a few gold in his pocket, and found the silver flogger, and had been there for a couple of days, saw the party come in the last night, observed that they looked to have been in some scuffles, and thought, this might be a band that I can hang with. Today, Lorque made those introductions, and Talira and Virago struck up a conversation with him. It's at that point that Blaine and Grebe share their news with the party that we found this woman who brokers sales of living spaces, and she has this tower, but there's some kind of evil there. There's some kind of presence that they want us to remove. Nobody feels excited about that, but they like the prospect of a cheaper tower, a deal on a tower. Talira and Virago are able to report, and they probably say this in some hushed tones so that Lorque doesn't pick up on any of it, but that discount would still give them a pretty healthy sum of money they could use to fix up the tower, perhaps fortify it a bit, perhaps hire retainers to look after it, maybe do some security of their own where they could eventually feel safe keeping their treasure there. So they decide that the next day they will make contact with Elgiva and will find out how to get to this tower. They'll take the offer, basically. Lorque returns to his room. Everyone else returns to their rooms in the Silver Flogger. They say goodnight to Talbert, and the next morning they regroup for breakfast and they head to see Elgiva. Blaine and Grebe tell her that they are willing to take her up on this offer. They want to inspect this tower, and they reserve the right, if they feel it's too dangerous, not to take the offer. Not only not to cleanse it of its evil, but they want to make sure they can back out entirely. And possibly, they say, if we go in and this thing is just beaten up and we find it to be unlivable, we want a sum of gold to have done this, or a discount on the next property that you can show us. Elgiva thinks this is pretty reasonable. Also thinks that the owner might just give a cut of the sale. Like if they can sell it later for full price, they can give a cut of that to the party. This tower is outside of Longfelt a little bit. Not too far, but it is not within the city walls and therefore its fortifications. It's a little bit closer to Ganfell Swamp on the eastern side of the city. It wouldn't really affect their travel time anywhere, but they do recognize that they would not be in the safety of Longfelt if they lived there. So what I've done, and I'm not sure how successful this would be, but I've made a little one-shot tower crawl for myself. I used some random tables, both in the Rules Cyclopedia and in Old School Essentials, and I also knew the theme of it. And so I know what's going on here, but I think there's enough randomness, and I'm going to randomize that with a yes-no die as well, and some other rolls, so that I can kind of play this straight, as though I didn't design the very thing that they are crawling into. They approach this tower. They take the directions from Elgiva. It takes them, I'd say, maybe an hour to get out there, maybe a little over an hour. So they know on foot they're an hour, 2 hours from the city. And it appears to be just a tower that was built as a residence, really. It doesn't look like it was part of a keep. It doesn't look like it is particularly weird in the wizardly way that they see from Balffor's tower, but they could see that this is a place where wizards might covet this kind of living. And they are going to first, they're going to look around as they approach. So as they approach, there is a family graveyard that has some concerning details behind this tower, sort of to the northwest of this tower. They're coming in from the west. This tower is to the east of the city. They're coming from the west, headed to the east. It may be a question of who spots this graveyard first. So I'm just going to roll a d8, go through my roster, and if I roll an 8, I'll re-roll it. 2. Virago sees, as they approach, within a couple hundred feet, Virago sees that there is a kind of family graveyard that looks to be disturbed. When they report this is the first time that Lorque feels this fear. Lorque has marched out there with this party feeling like perhaps he's found his people, his group. I can do this. He's sort of putting on this front, even though he is a first level elf. He does know a magic spell. He has this sword and dagger, this plate and shield. So they approach. This is something that Lorkay was not expecting. Disturbed graves. They see graves that look like they have been dug up, and not dug up with an implement like a shovel or a hoe or something, but almost like claws, hands, like animals have dug this up. Within it, they see caskets that are opened or shattered. This looks quite horrible. Without Vakwal here, there's no sort of chaotic force in the group. I'm wondering what the odds are that someone wants to climb into a grave to see what's going on. I think I'm leaning towards a 1 in 10, but a 1 in 6 might just be fine. Let me do a 1 in 6. There's a 1 in 6 chance that one of them decides to inspect a little further. No. So they see these disturbed graves, and they see the tower not far from it. They read the inscriptions on the graves. There are some dates of when the people were buried and the length of their lives. So they're able to see that there was a baby that died in possibly childbirth or infancy, as well as one much older adult and then one adult of normal adult age. In addition, there's a kind of an obelisk, like a family marker that has been knocked over. That family marker says Walton on it and has some details about this being the retirement home of a couple. In these details, it explains that they had farmed for years, and this was the place they built near the city that they could enjoy their later years. But of course, with the names on these and dates on these tombstones, it looks like maybe there were other details here that some subsequent generations may have lived here. We are going to look for trap doors or secret doors. So that is a 1 on a roll of it's a 1 in 6, but Lorkay will have a 2 in 6 as an elf, and no one finds anything. So with that, we've inspected around the base of this. I need to roll an encounter here. They see no other way in except the front door, and they don't have any sense of any kind of danger around it. It's late afternoon by the time they've gotten out there. The sun is maybe not setting yet, but they're aware that they don't have a lot of sunlight left. So let's say it's like 4 p.m. and they've spent 20 minutes as they've searched around, probably more than that actually, 30. I'm going to roll a wandering monsters check. So there is no wandering monster. So they open this front door. They've been told to expect that it is uninhabited. This is a property for sale. In fact, I think Elgaiva has given them the key, so they are able to unlock it, and they open the front door. And the first thing they're greeted by inside, before they even cross the threshold, is that there's a tiny bell on a string hanging there right next to the door, as though this is what you would use to alert anyone upstairs. I think there's going to be a 1 in 8 chance that anyone rings this. This seems like a particularly foolish thing to do. Yeah, no one rings this bell. We all see it as a way of, if there is anything here, just announcing our presence, and we don't want to do that. We step in the room, Dungeoneering Company first, so that is Grebe, Zenith, and Balad. They see that there is a cellar door in the floor in the back. There's a table here that has scraps of a recent meal on it. And this looks like just normal human or demi-human food. Like it's scraps of chicken and some potatoes. This does not look like anything strange or like a creature has chaotically feasted on anything. This looks like a person has prepared a meal and eaten it here. So they kind of exchange looks. They're a little bit worried about that. It is still daytime, of course, as I had said, so there's no need to light a torch. This is pretty well lit from windows in the room. They see that there's a ladder that staircase that goes into the second floor above. They presume this is a cellar door. Do they spend more than one round inspecting this? No. So they go in there. It takes them about 10 seconds. They look around. They sort of get the feel of everything, and then they call in the rest of the party. When the rest of the party gets in, the entire floor opens up and drops them down into the larder. Everyone's going to take 2 damage as they fall down. It's particularly painful for Lorkay, who only is a first level and has 4 hit points. They fall onto this dirt floor in the larder, in the basement, the cellar. They see a ladder against the wall. Sort of, this is what would be used with the cellar door. It is not underneath the cellar door at this moment. And they don't have a moment to take this in before they see that there is a ghoul right there. I'm wondering if I need to roll a surprise, because I think at this point they've landed in there. The ghoul is going to be aggressive. I'm going to roll initiative. 2. The ghoul gets to act first. Lorkay is freaked out. This is horrifying. They've walked into a tower. They've all cleverly thought, oh, we're not going to ring that bell. All of a sudden, the floor gives way. They crash down into this cellar, and there is a ghoul there. The ghoul gets to go first, and it is going to targets Talira. This ghoul comes after Talira. It has a claw bite attack. That's no good. It hits Talira and immediately does 3 points of damage with its claw. Hits her again, 4, so that's going to be 4 total. Rerolling a cracked die, 6 total HP down, and she has to save versus paralysis, which is 13. She saves versus paralysis, thank goodness. She is very hurt, but not paralyzed yet. So on our turn, Grebe will step up. They have a sword +1, which means it is a magic sword, although the ghoul is not an enchanted creature, so mundane weapons do affect it, as I understand. Ooh, Grebe does not hit. Zenith comes in swinging the Morning Star. Does not hit. Ballad swinging the two-handed sword. Does not hit. Virago comes in with their staff. 17 does hit the ghoul for 2 points of damage. Talira is going to use that dagger +1. Doesn't hit. And Blaine will use his warhammer. Does not hit. So once again, we've fallen, like there's this surprise at like hitting the ground and seeing this horrible undead beast come after us and immediately strike Talira. So I roll for initiative. 5. We get the jump on the ghoul this round. Grebe with the +1 sword. Can't get there. Zenith with the Morning Star. Doesn't get there. Ballad with the two-handed sword. Come on. Talira. Virago. Blaine. Keep forgetting Blaine has a +1 to his attack roll. Still doesn't get there. And I forgot Lorkay now jumping in with their sword. Lorkay gets the first hit on this ghoul and does 4 points of damage. The ghoul is very hurt and now rolls morale. 6. It stays in the fight. So the ghoul, I think it has sensed that Talira is the least capable of attacking it, but Lorkay was the last one in there. It goes after Lorkay. Claw. Lorkay has a great AC because of that plate and the shield, so that does not hit. Claws at Lorkay, scrapes off his armor. That 18 will hit, does 2 points of damage on the second claw, and then the bite misses entirely. So 2 more points. Lorkay is going to go down, but saving... Oh, does not have to save versus paralysis because elves are immune to ghoul paralysis. They all see their brand new companion fall, and they all feel this like sense of like, we cannot get it together. Like, how are we ever going to get people to accompany us and help protect us, help us go on these adventures if we can't save this person? So I'm going to roll initiative. Whew, we get to go first. Blaine runs to Lorkay, gives him a healing potion. Lorkay gets 3 points back, but we'll be out of it for this fight. That is just my house rule because I don't think it makes sense to drink a potion and immediately start fighting again. Grebe, +1 sword after this ghoul. Natural 20 destroys the ghoul. A pretty harrowing first encounter for Lorkay. They prop Lorkay up against this wall, and they notice that there does seem to be kind of a dug out tunnel there. It looks perhaps like this ghoul. There are sort of the same sort of claw marks and stuff, that perhaps this ghoul crawled through this hole. And given the time they spent reviewing the graves outside, perhaps this ghoul was one of those bodies buried and crawled its way in here and did not actually escape through the top of this grave, but crawled into the tower that way. They rest for a turn to give Lord K a chance for that healing to take effect. While that's happening, the others maneuver this ladder around to that cellar door, and they are able to climb back up into the kitchen. They see clearly that there's like a trap right in the center of the floor in the kitchen. They're able to avoid it and climb those stairs. They kind of look at each other and shrug. They test the stairs a little bit to make sure they're secure, and they begin walking up. Of course, the Dungeoneering Company is going to go first. They get to this second floor. They see that this room has D4 skeletons in it. It has 4. There's a couch here in this room, and these skeletons seem to be kind of lounging around. They hold rusty swords or sort of smashed up morning stars, or I guess maces, in fact. Like they're all sort of D6 weapons in that regard, but they're rusted and banged up. Looks very much like the skeletons they found in the Barrow of the Bone Blackguards adventure. Do they startle the skeletons? So I'm going to roll surprise. The yellow is my party and the black is the skeletons. We are both surprised to see them. Virago's awareness means that they are only surprised on a 1. So I did roll the 1 result that means everyone in the party is surprised. And now I get to check that because I don't know what it means when everyone is surprised. So both groups lose 1 round. This has a negligible effect when there are only 2 groups, but I can see if there were several groups and you rolled surprise on them, having 2 of them both be surprised would have an impact. But it doesn't mean anything here. We lose a round, gather our senses, and roll for initiative. Skeletons get to act first. They walk up off the sofa that they're sitting on and come at us. I think we've got 3 of us in the room right now, the Dungeoneering Company. On our turn, the other 4 of us will get up into this room. So they can really only attack Grebe, Zenith, and Balad. Because they got the initiative, Blaine has no chance to turn undead yet. So one goes after Grebe. 18 is going to hit her. It does 2 points of damage. Zenith does not hit Zenith and does not hit Balad. So the other 2 kind of clash off. I forgot there's one more skeleton. It goes after, I'll say, Grebe. 2 of them are on Grebe. This one does hit also and really hurts Grebe. Gets Grebe down to 1 HP. And it is now our turn. Grebe swings at that first skeleton and misses terribly. Zenith, Morning Star, also misses terribly. Balad, 2-handed sword, does hit for 4 points of damage. At this point, the rest of my party gets up there, and Blaine, seeing these walking skeletons, holds out his holy symbol, that New York coffee cup, and admonishes these undead, turns them automatically because they are skeletons, and I roll, I believe it's 2d6. I do roll 2d6 to see how many hit dice of skeletons are turned. 11. So all of these skeletons are turned. Do they go up or down? 1 through 3, they go up. 4 through 6, they go down. Whoops. 1, they go up. So the skeletons start running for the ladder on their turn, or at least that's what they will do. We still get to act because only Blaine has done anything in this moment. So to Lyra, with that dagger, swings at one of these skeletons. 16 will hit the skeleton. It does 5 damage because it's her +1 dagger, -2 for her strength, so it does 3. She takes out that one skeleton that was hit. Pretty amazing. Virago swings their staff, misses. Blaine has acted. Lorkay swings their sword at 1 and also misses. So the skeletons on their turn make it to the ladder, the staircase, and start running upstairs. Do we stay to inspect the room or do we chase them out? Do we stay to inspect the room? Yes. I'll say we spend 1 round doing that. We inspect the room. There doesn't seem to be anything valuable here. The furniture in it is really torn apart and old and aged. This does not look like furniture that has current occupants in this house. They spend around doing that. They run upstairs. They're not going to be surprised. Have the skeletons run up the next set of stairs. Yes. When we arrive in that third floor, which appears to be a bedroom, the skeletons are not there. We sort of see the last of them heading up those stairs. Here, we're going to take a moment. So we let our Dungeoneering Company and Blaine guard that staircase. Do they search this room? No, they don't. Okay, they see the skeletons running up there. They take a moment, gather themselves, get themselves into position. This time, Blaine is going to run up the stairs with the fighting company in order to turn them again. There is something that might surprise them up there, so I'm going to roll for surprise. Neither of us is surprised. There are an additional 4 skeletons up there. So there are 7 skeletons total because we took one of them out. I sort of pre-rolled up hit points for 9 skeletons. Neither of us is surprised. We're just going to roll initiative. 6. We get to act first. We get to the top of the stairs, and Blaine, like before anything else can happen, brandishes that coffee cup and tells them, in the name of all that is caffeinated and holy, I admonish thee. 8 hit dice of skeletons are turned. That is incredible because that is all the skeletons. The skeletons start fleeing and don't really know what to do. A couple of them just jump out of the window. Some of them sort of bang past the others on the stairwell. And as they do that, we take swipes at them. So Grebe. Oh, wait, let me look that up. Is this sort of a, if you attack it, it's not turned anymore? I don't see any notes in the rules cyclopedia about that. So as they're bumping down the stairs, half of them bumping down the stairs, the fighting company starts taking shots at them. Ballot hits one for 3 points of damage. They pass the others. Talira's going to miss with that anyway. Virago does hit and does 1 point of damage to one more. And then Blaine has turned, so Lorkay is the last and hits another for 3 points of damage and just shatters one of these skeletons. Lorkay is really feeling his power a little bit in this moment. As this kind of chaos is going on and we have all attacked the skeletons, we are now faced with a man in kind of grungy wizard robes who stands there in front of us. The fighting company who is in the room recognized this person. This is Quintius, whom they faced in the barrow of the Bone Blackguards. And Quintius, they see on the desk in this room that there is the book that Quintius was using to resurrect the dead. They see a bookcase that the shelves are filled with books as well as magic items or magic components. And it is now Quintius's turn to act. Quintius has leveled up a couple of levels since they last met him. He was a first level magic user in quite bad shape because of his imprisonment in the barrow, but is now a third level magic user and has more HP. Quintius is going to do that thing that every magic user they have ever met does, and is going to try to put them to sleep. I roll 2d8, and that's how many hit dice it puts to sleep. 11. The Dungeoneering Company and Blaine are on that level. Each of them has 3 hit dice, so that's 9 hit dice right there. Blaine has 3 hit dice, so he does not fall asleep. Virago is probably the next to fall asleep because they only have 2 hit dice. Talira has 4, although Lorkay would be another target. I'm thinking as they're on the stairs, Lorkay is at the very bottom, so as this sort of spell sweeps out over them, it hits Virago first. So Virago also goes to sleep. So Grebe, Zenith, Balad, and Virago fall asleep. Blaine, Talira, and Lorkay are not asleep. Talira and Blaine recognize immediately what is happening and shout to Lorkay, slap any of those that fell asleep. We've got to take this magic user out. And I'm going to roll initiative. 3. Quintius gets to act first. Quintius has burned sleep for the day, sees the others on the staircase. They have not yet gotten up. So Quintius has the spell Web, and I'm wondering if he would cast it on those in the staircase. But Blaine is also standing at the top. So Quintius sort of realizes there's not a lot he can do. If he spends his action stabbing one of these sleeping party members, Blaine will undoubtedly attack him and probably kill him with that warhammer. If he casts web on those in the staircase where he could easily get everyone on the staircase. He can't then stop Blaine. Like, again, Blaine would be free. So Quintius is in this weird position of wondering what to do with Blaine. And Quintius has just a moment to act. If he runs over to the shelf and tries to grab one of these potions that he's got on it, again, Blaine will undoubtedly run over there. He feels like he needs to protect himself. I think he's going to use web on Blaine. Oof. This is a tough call. It is a 10 by 10 foot area. If he gets Blaine, only Talira and Lorkay are awake. We haven't really faced webs before, I don't think. Oh, no, we did. We burned a web. We did burn a web in Gunderholfen once. Okay, he casts web on Blaine. The spell creates a mass of sticky strands which are difficult to destroy except with flame. It blocks the area affected. So I think he can do this in a way that blocks... Ooh, that might be the move. That blocks the others from getting up above the stairs. That's what he does. He blocks the stairs. So the others can't wake their companions, and Blaine is the only one awake at the top of the stairs. So Quintius casts this web. It covers the opening of the staircase. Blaine is now stuck on the top floor with Quintius, and the bodies of Grebe, Zenith, and Balad. Talira and Lorkay are stuck on the stairs with the sleeping body of Virago. So on our turn, Lorkay will wake Virago, sort of timidly slaps Virago, but then realizing that doesn't do anything, just gives them a real powerful slap across the face, and Virago wakes up. Talira, they're not within the web, so Talira lights a torch and starts burning the web. Blaine wonders whether to wake his companions or go after Quintius. This is a real tough metagaming moment, but I think Blaine knows how hard it is to hit. They are not yet good enough fighters that hit is assured of working. So Blaine sees that Zenith is in the best shape health-wise and wakes Zenith. So now I'm going to roll for initiative. We get the initiative. So Blaine, with that Warhammer, runs over to Quintius. 19. Hits Quintius for only 1 point of damage. Just barely nicks Quintius as Quintius is running back towards that shelf full of magical things. Zenith then approaches Quintius with the Morning Star. 13. Hits Quintius for 3 more points of damage. Grebe is sleeping. Virago, Talira, and Lorkay are awake, but it takes 2 rounds for that torch to burn that web away. So the web is starting to catch on, but they just started at this round. It is now Quintius's initiative. Facing only 2 of them, Quintius has this rage in his eyes, like they just see these blood vessels like form right in his eyes, just this pure hatred, and he runs to Grebe and stabs her with his dagger, and then turns to look at them and just laughs in this evil way as she now has no hit points, and they will have to spend their turn healing her. We now roll for initiative. We get the initiative. Blaine runs to Grebe and casts Cure Light Wounds on Grebe. It's only 2 hit points back, but Grebe is now awakened through that. Zenith swings that Morning Star at Quintius. Misses. And this is the second round. As that web burns away, the other 3 are posed to jump into action, but it is Quintius's turn. Does Quintius now try to escape? There are 3 awake people here and 3 on the stairs. Does Quintius try to escape? Quintius has a move here, but if he's going to try to escape, it's going to take him this round and the next. Yes, he tries to escape. Quintius begins, I believe I'm doing this right, so Quintius has a scroll of levitate, and I believe to read that scroll, Quintius needs to cast the spell Read Magic. What I'm reading in the Rules Cyclopedia is that you have to use Read Magic to determine what's on a scroll, and then casting it, the character must be able to read the scroll and must read it aloud. So I think he's read it before to know he has a scroll of levitate. And it is at this point that he has to cast read magic and then on the next turn read the scroll. I think that makes sense as long as read magic lasts, for that duration. And it does. Oh, okay. Once a spellcaster reads a scroll with this spell, he can read or speak that magic later without using a spell. Okay, so because he has read this before to identify it or to create it, he does not have to cast the spell read magic. So in that case, Quintius reads the spell levitate, and when this spell is cast, the spellcaster moves up or down in the air without any support. It does not, however, allow the spellcaster to move from side to side. For example, a spellcaster could levitate to a ceiling and then could slowly move sideways by pushing and pulling. His movement up or down is at a rate of 20 feet per round. So he can move up or down in the air without any support. So what Quintius does is jumps out this window as he is reading this scroll. So Quintius then begins descending very slowly at 20 feet per round. Blaine is dealing with Grebe. I'm going to roll initiative because Quintius, we get it. Okay, that's great. If Quintius had gotten it, he would have had another round of movement. Zenith runs over to that window and sees that he is sort of gently falling down the back of this tower. She shouts to everyone else what is happening. Talira and Virago will have enough on their action to run over here and use their slings to just try to nail him as he's floating down. So they run over to that window and sling bullet at him. Natural 20 from Talira, 3 points of damage minus the 2, so she does 1 point of damage to Quintius as he gets hit by a sling bullet. And Virago also slings. An 8 is not going to do it. Lorque has no ranged weapons, so Quintius then gets to float another 20 feet down. He is at ground level, and they see him laughing as he runs away. However, they're able to recover the spell book that they were not able to recover before. They'd actually taken it from him, and then he put them to sleep and took it back. This is the Dead Grimoire. Vellum pages bound in black leather. Magical script written in blood describes a ritual to animate dead remains. None of us understands that. Lorque does have magic, but does not have read magic, so cannot read this. We kind of look around. The structure of this place is pretty good, but we're a little worried about the hole that leads to the dug-out graveyard and the fact that Quintius knows where we are. So I think we're going to be negotiating with Elgiva for a better price on this, and we're definitely going to need to spend a lot of money to secure it, but otherwise it looks like it holds up pretty good. We spend the rest of that day inspecting the tower, the rest of that watch, sorry. And then as night begins to fall, we are going to head back to the city. We will meet with Elgiva. We will, once again, stay the night in the Silver Flogger and probably deliver the Dead Grimoire to Balffor the next day. I think that's what we're going to do. We know that Balffor will be very excited to get his hands on this. I do think Talira and Blaine begin to wonder, should we give this to Balffor? We'll discuss that the next day. But as they return to the Silver Flogger, once again, looking like they've been in a fight, Talbert greets them and specifically calls out Talira and says, there's a woman here looking for you, and points to this booth in the corner where Talira spots a woman dressed in the holy robes of the Temple of Cathalea. It is Josephine, the priestess they've met before. So Talira and Virago walk over to her and greet her, say we're sorry we're always meeting under these distressed circumstances. Talira is overcome with this grief. I'm sorry. She's constantly feeling like she is messed up around the adults in her life. I can't believe I had to drop off another dead companion at your temple. I don't know what else to do. We feel like we're doing some good. We're following our calling, but it is obviously dangerous work. And Josephine says, you don't understand what's going on. The person you dropped off 2 days ago, that body, it's gone. We had some other clerics keeping watch on the room where we kept that body in state overnight. There were always people in and out of that room, and they walked in and saw that the shroud they'd put over him was gone. And someone in the courtyard reported seeing him walking out of the gates of the temple. That's what I came to warn you about. And that is where I will end my session.